Hey everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our weekly Torah study. As you know, we're all figuring out as a team how to get programs out to you in this new way. And we are still figuring out how to do more sort of interactive conversations, maybe using a phone number that people can call into, that sort of thing. And at the time I'm recording this video, um, it's still not totally clear how to do that. So, what I'm gonna try for today, and it will change next week, is I'm just gonna start Torah study in the way that I normally do. And then, because we can't really have an active conversation right now, at least I can't figure out how to do it quite yet. Um, I am going to introduce a guest speaker, um, and have him follow me. The guest speaker will be the Chief Rabbi of England, Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Obviously, he's not here in my apartment, but I'm going to find a way to show the video after my introduction right now of a beautiful little teaching he just did about the Torah portion and coronavirus and sort of a nice reflection on being a little bit in isolation and at this time of uncertainty. So he may repeat a few things that I share, but I think they're worth repeating because it's a really beautiful little teaching for this week for us all to sort of draw nourishment from, hopefully. So the way that I like to normally start Torah study, for all the new folks who are joining us, welcome, is I like to start with a tradition of dedicating our Torah study to people who are in need of healing, people whose memories we might be honoring. If there's someone who would be really proud of the fact that you're tuning into Torah study today, you can dedicate the learning to them. And this comes from a really beautiful old tradition that Torah and study in general, but especially sort of sacred study, is not just an intellectual activity, but is actually something that has in it the energy to affect tikkun, the energy to affect healing and repair in the world. So, as we begin our Torah study, I like to just think about all the people who could use that healing, who could use that that repair. So I invite you now to just take a moment, think of someone or a community who's in need of a little extra support and energy right now. I know there are so many communities, so many people. And I'll just be silent for a moment and invite you to say aloud the name of the person you're thinking of, or the community you're thinking of, someone who you're remembering, who you think would just be really delighted that you're doing this, or someone who's in need of extra support right now, and invite you to say their names out loud. So we dedicate our learning to all of these people who you've named or called to mind. We're thinking about so many communities right now who are in need of extra care and support. Some of the harder hit areas right now, like New York, Italy, Spain, a lot of, all over the world, really. And especially, I want to dedicate our learning today to people who are feeling really isolated and really struggling with that, very understandably. May our learning together help connect people to each other and to the deep sources of resilience that people have in them right now. So the really neat thing about Torah study, and I'll say the blessing in a moment, and then we'll jump into it, is that it's considered a mitzvah, right? There are lots of different mitzvahs out there, doing good deeds for other people, giving charity, visiting the sick, which we can't really do right now. And studying Torah is amongst those mitzvot. I've shared this with some of you who are tuning in, but mitzvah, that word, is connected to an Aramaic word, tzavta. You can hear the similar sound, which means to connect. So as we do this Torah study today, may it connect us to each other, knowing that we're all tuning into this together, and in some sort of metaphorical way, we're all in the same room right now. We're all doing the same thing right now, engaging in this sacred study. So I'm going to say the blessing over Torah study now, over this mitzvah, and then we'll jump in. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Excuse me. So, this week's Torah portion, we're following the weekly cycle, since it's just a really nice rhythm to stay in right now, is called Vayikra. It's the beginning of the book of Leviticus. At the very beginning, Moses conducts a ceremony to sort of kick off the tent of meeting and initiate the priests who are going to officiate in the tent of meeting. There's this beautiful image of a cloud that covers the tent of meeting, and the presence of God fills the tent, fills the tabernacle. However we imagine that, right? I personally, this is not everyone's belief, but I personally believe that the Torah is an account of our ancestors' experiences, and the closest they could get to really talking about these really powerful moments of connection with something greater than themselves was through metaphor. So these are the metaphors that they're using for feeling really connected to something greater than themselves. This tent is somehow filled with presence, filled with the presence of God. And God calls to Moses and tells Moses how the Israelites are going to be in relationship with God. They're going to be in relationship with God through this whole system of sacrifices that really help the community sort of assess how it's doing, and if there are people who are sort of not aligning with the community there are certain sacrifices they can give that will help them come back into alignment with the community and reconnect. All of this stuff these days just sounds so primal and sort of hard to relate to. Sacrifices, animal sacrifices, grain sacrifices. We don't do this stuff anymore. Right? Once the temple was destroyed and the priestly system ended, there was no place for the priests to officiate. The rabbis really brilliantly said, okay, we're going to replace the physical sacrificial system with a new kind of offering. Not a physical offering, an offering of heart. So that's where all of our prayers come in now. They're all a replacement. They're a kind of offering in place of the sacrificial system that we're starting to talk about this week. All of that's very nice. I think an offering of heart is a beautiful sort of paradigm shift, a beautiful way of engaging in this way of connecting with God or connecting with something greater than ourselves. But given our isolation right now, and given, like right now I'm talking to my computer, I'm picturing you all and imagining you all tuning in, but we're not in the same physical space. So what's so powerful for me, first of all, about Leviticus, about this new book that we're moving into, Vayikra, is that it's all about physical sacrifice. It's about touching things. It's about altars, and it's about using a physical system to connect people to each other, a physical system to actually get in touch in some really wild way with the great mystery. Right, we're picturing God descending on this tent and meeting the people, and it's all metaphor, but there's something so tactile about all of it. There's touch and smell and taste and all kinds of things going on here. The smell of the burnt sacrifices is sort of smells like a barbecue, So all of these sensory experiences that I think a lot of us are missing right now, I certainly am, are all evoked really beautifully in this week's Torah portion. One particular detail that I wanted to share with you, and this will segue into introducing our speaker, is that the very first word of the book of Leviticus is Vayikra. So Rashi has a really interesting comment about this. So the first sentence is Vayikra el Moshe Vayidaber Hashem elav me'ohel moed lemor. The Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. Okay, saying, and then he goes into all the instructions. The rabbis have so much to say about this first word of the book, Vayikra. Right? So Rashi, who's 10th, 11th century commentator, says, Vayikra el Moshe. This is how he interprets these words. And God called unto Moses. So all the way that God speaks to Moses and calls to people is always uses this word Vayikra. It's also the word. It's an affectionate word. It's a loving word. God calls upon Moses and says, "Hey, come here. I have something to tell you." It's the same word Rashi points out that we have in our holiness prayer, the Kedusha, that the angels call one to another, saying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh." Right? So it's this loving um, way of addressing another person or another being, Vayikra. And this is Rashi makes a distinction between this form of calling out and the way that God reveals God's self to Balaam. Now, if you remember, Balaam is the person who was told to go curse the Israelites when they were all assembled in their tents, encamped in the wilderness. And it says that God Vayikra Balaam. And you can't see it right now, but in the Torah, this is the remarkable thing that Rabbi Sachs will talk about a little bit more. The first word of the Torah, Vayikra, has a small aleph at the end of it. The word without the aleph means happened upon, occurred, sort of had a chance encounter. And that's the kind of encounter that God has with Balaam. This is someone who just like doesn't believe in something greater than himself. He's very self-centered and thinks he has total control over the world, Balaam. So that's how God reveals God's self to Balaam, is as sort of like just a chance encounter, nothing meaningful in that, from that worldview of Vayikar, without the aleph. The world is just chaos. There's no order. There's no meaning. There's no purpose. But with the aleph, which is the way we have it, when God is calling to Moses, there is a sense of calling. There's a sense of purpose in the world, even in the very midst of the kind of uncertainty that we're living through right now, the incredible challenge, and I think for many people, fear and anxiety and isolation that people are living through. There's still purpose in it. We may not see it at the time, but it's something that we, when this is all over, can look back on and find some moments when we were able to learn something new, when we were able to find an opportunity in the midst of this challenging time, to reconnect with family, reconnect with friends perhaps who we've lost touch with. That's what Vayikra is with the aleph. It's the way that we find purpose as life is unfolding in all of its sort of uncertainty and its mystery. And what's so neat about the way that it's written in the Torah with that little aleph is you can see how easy it is for us to sort of slip from one way of seeing the world to another. All it takes is losing that aleph, and we're suddenly just like, what is this all about? There's no meaning. This is all chaos. And it's up to us to really do what we can to ground ourselves, to find our breath, to remember that we have a body, and to sort of tune into our body in the present moment. That's what allows us to notice that tiny little aleph that changes the whole meaning of the word and of the world, and allows us to step back into a sense that, oh, right, I'm being called toward something. I don't know what it is right now, but there is some purpose for me in the world. There is meaning in my existence, and I'm going to grow through this, and I'm going to learn something new through this, even if I don't know what it is yet, even if I don't know when I'm going to figure out what there is to learn from any of this. So with that, I think that's a good enough introduction to what Rabbi Sachs is going to share with you. And just want to close my introduction here by just, letting you know how much I care about you all, and reminding you that I'm here for you. Those words really do mean a lot to me. I'm not just saying them. If you ever want to reach me, you can call my office phone. It automatically forwards to my home phone, so that's a great way to reach me. You can email me. But I really love to hear how you're doing. I've had a chance to speak to a few of you, and it's just been really good and reassuring to hear all the creative ways that you're all adapting and trying to cope in this really, really challenging time. Even if you don't reach out to me, know that I'm holding you in my heart and in my thoughts. And we'll see. Torah study next week might look a little different, but I hope this was good for this week. So just stay tuned right now. I'm going to put on Rabbi Jonathan Sachs' address. And I'll just say, he also, even though he's the chief rabbi of England, has incredible technical difficulties. So you'll notice that the first couple, I think it's like the first minute or so of his broadcast is really sort of glitchy, and he gets a lot of feedback, and he's trying to figure out how to fix it. So just hang in there. He does figure it out, and he has some beautiful words to say. And may his humanity shining through just reassure you that we're all in this together, trying to figure it out. And none of us is alone, even if we sometimes feel alone. So be well.